Hello. I'm making this video because I recently came across, my husband came across some videos that he had found on YouTube from my niece. To give you guys a little bit of a background, back in March of 2015, I was contacted by Somerset County CYS, and I was asked if I was interested in fostering my niece. They were going to pull her from my mother's home, and they were looking at relatives, and my name came up. And I said, yes, I would be interested in fostering her. Being a family member, I did not want her being passed around in the system, and God forbid, ending up in hands of people that are cruel and evil and just vile. You hear horror stories, and I had told them, yes, I will step up, I will take her in, we will foster her. So after a month and a half, 2 months, whatever it was that we jumped through hoops and did training and got, past classes and stuff to foster, we were approved to have her come to our home. In March of 2015, we went and picked her up, brought her home, and when we had brought her home, we had let her finish the school year out in public school in our area. We had lived in Venango County at the time. It was about 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes one way from Somerset to where we lived. And they would have to come out, the caseworker, if I remember correctly, the caseworker would have to come out and do monthly evaluations. And she finished the school year, but not without, sorry. She had finished the school year in public school, but not without any issues. The first couple months were fine, but it was like the last month or so, she had said she had started having issues, and with other kids, they were bullying her, they were calling her names, they were singling her out. And of course, as a parent myself, of two young kids, who were not in school yet, I was very overprotective, and so I had brought the matter before the principal. And I, contacted the caseworker and let everybody know what was going on, and she still seemed to be having problems. And she was riding the bus to school and was saying that she was having problems on the school bus. And so I'd called the school or the bus garage to see if they had any recorded footage of the incident. And they said, well, we don't actually record what goes on the bus. It's just there pretty much as a scare tactic, is what they told me. So at this point I was livid. I'm like, because I'm thinking, something happened. Now I don't have proof. We can't see who it was. We can't see what was done. Of course, completely believing my niece. And as time went on over the summer, we just started to notice little things around the house that, at the house that caused me to question whether what really happened in school happened, or if it was the result of what she caused to happen. That aside, the point of the video is to let you guys know my experience with Somerset County CYS, and to reach out, and hopefully if there's anybody else who's had a similar experience with any county CYS, maybe you could give me some information on what I could do. But CYS, children and youth, seems to be all about keeping the family together. But when we had my niece, we only had her for a little over a year. There was never any talk about fostering to adopt, and they were so quick to pull her out of our house that it was like the rug was pulled out from underneath her feet, and we didn't have time to process everything, and we were just kind of left like, what happened? I felt like I was railroaded by them. I felt like they were just grasping at straws to get whatever approval they needed to pull her from our house. And so we got her in March of 2015. She finished the school year out in public school. We had some issues. We met with the principal about it. I informed the caseworker about it. Over the summer, we all had a good time. You know, we still had some issues, that learned behavior issues that she had picked up from my mom and my sister. You know, not just everyday issues, manipulative issues, things like that. Um, I was just, by the end of summer, I was to my wit's end because I didn't know what to do to make anything better. I didn't know why she was acting the way that she was. You know, I internalized everything. And so at that point in my life, I was also dealing with health issues, both physically and emotion and mental health issues, depression, anxiety, PTSD from my own childhood. So, and of course, at the time, I didn't realize that I was dealing with these things. So the fall school year starts, and I had talked with her caseworker about enrolling her in the private, smaller Christian school, you know, thinking that maybe a smaller classroom might benefit her more. It might help her a lot more. Sorry, my hand's going numb. um, and they had seemed fine with it. They said, yes, as long as you keep us updated on her progress and you send us the report cards, da 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 da, you know, the whole spiel. I said, yeah, of course. Of course I will. Well, I had found out, I was getting phone calls from the school stating that my niece was going and telling her teacher that we don't feed her, we don't love her. And of course, they were wise enough to know that that wasn't the case because they knew me and they knew her. And they knew that since I was fostering her, they knew, they had the common sense, the wherewithal to use their brain and think, well, this could just be a learned behavior, you know. They've been around me, they've known me. They knew me for 7 years before my niece came to live with us. Sorry. Excuse me, I mean. And so we had our fair issues that we dealt with my niece. But we loved her just the same. I was stressed out, and in October of 2015, I started seeing a counselor to help sort of start the process of dealing with the mental health issues that I had developed from my childhood and all the issues that I was currently reliving or rehashing because I was now a parent myself and stressed out and just a hot mess. And then in November of 2000, from November 2015 till December, I had gone to the doctor for multiple tests to see what was going on with me. They checked my gallbladder, my liver, everything was coming back normal, but I was still having issues. And Jizelle had been going to school, telling her teachers that we didn't feed her, we didn't love her, we were singling her out, and I'm not even really sure why. I don't know why she would do that. And trying to understand her, just trying to get her to explain it, obviously for any child to do what they do. They can't put into words why they do that. You know what I mean? I, as an adult, struggle to figure out why I feel or think or act the way that I do sometimes. I mean, obviously, working with a counselor, I've gotten much better at being able to pinpoint why. But, that wasn't then. This is now. And here we are. I'm sorry. It's late. Here we are 5 years later. Over 5 years now. And I still struggle with it, but I'm a work in progress. And so come November, I must have forgotten to pay her school bill, because anybody who knows, who has put their own kids through private school, knows that you can pay one lump sum, or you can make monthly payments. Well, we were not rich by any means. We still aren't. Um, and despite uh, the money that we would get, I mean, she would eat, like, she ate more than my husband, and my husband can put the food away. Any lady, any woman that's out there knows that a man can put food away. I mean, they can eat, and she was eating just as much as he was. And not that we had a problem with that, but I mean, she was eating a lot, a lot. And between that and her clothes, and paying to get her hair done, my niece is biracial. I had no idea how to do her hair, so I would have to take her and pay somebody to do her hair to make sure that she was taken care of. Um, and with that being the holidays and that time of year, I don't know if it slipped my mind to pay the bill, or if I didn't have the money, or I don't even remember what was going on. But I didn't find out that there was an issue with the report card until um, her caseworker had called me and said, you know, we didn't get her report card. You know, the stipulations were that you were to keep us updated, send us copies of the report card, blah, 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 blah. And the school didn't tell me, like, they didn't say anything to me about the payment. And once I'd called them, I didn't realize I was supposed to get a quarterly report card. Like I said, my kids were young, they weren't in school yet, and it was all new to me. And anybody who is a parent, regardless of whether you've gone to school before or not, which we all have, but how many of us really remember the exact time of year that report cards are given out quarterly? Because I don't. And so I called the school and I asked them about it, and I was told, well, you didn't make your payment, and you can't get your report card unless you make a payment. So I was like, oh. And by that point, when I had realized what had happened, it was at the end of November. And I said, well, I don't have the money right now to make a payment, but I can at the beginning of the month. So they said, okay, well, that's fine, whatever. And so I did. I made the payment. I got her report card. And sent them a copy. And in the month of December, things just started to go wrong. They basically told me, we were told there were stipulations when we took her in. You can take her in, you can foster her as long as you do this. And when I brought up the private school, they said, well, we don't mind as long as you keep us updated on her grades and she's making progress. Excuse me. If at any time she stops making progress, or she backtracks or whatever, we're going to pull her out immediately and put her back in public school. I said, that's fine. I said, if it's not working out, I wouldn't want her to stay somewhere if it's not, benefiting her. So, we, we were given the ground rules, basically. And that wasn't a problem. I had no problem doing what they asked of me, as long as it was something I was able to do and I knew how to do. And in December started a whole list of things. So my niece was going to school and telling them we weren't feeding her, we didn't love her. And the school never questioned me. They never had called me. And in fact, I never really heard anything about this until in December, when I was speaking to either the principal or her teacher, and they were telling me this. And I said, "What? She's going to school telling you guys we don't feed her?" And I mean, it was just astounding, some of the things that she did and said. And again, learned behavior. So I didn't know any of this. And there was an incident where she'd gotten in trouble. And I had yelled at her the one night because I forget why. She lied to me, or she did something. And after I had basically reprimanded her, I went to go grab her arm and pull her closer to me so I could hug her. Well, she pulled away from me. And when she did that, like, I didn't grab a hold of her arm. She fell. And I can't remember if she scratched her hand, her arm, or maybe it was her forehead or something. I don't know. It was back in the laundry room where we lived at the time. And our dogs had just had... It wasn't just... No, I don't think it was just had. No, that would have been April of 2016, after she was gone. So they didn't just have puppies. But that's where, like, we sort of, like, did this DIY fence sort of thing to kind of, like, corral the dogs for whenever we'd go to the store and stuff, so we wouldn't have to come home to accidents or whatever. And it was like just a little wire fencing that we had put back there. Well, when she fell, went to go catch herself or put her hands in front of herself so she didn't, fall to her face. I don't know if she scratched her forehead or her hand or whatever off of that, but she had a scratch somewhere. And I don't even remember exactly where it was at. It was so long ago. But she had went to school, and her caseworker had just showed up out of the blue. Like, I was not called or informed that she would her caseworker was showing up at her school, or that it was time for her monthly visit or whatever. But she showed up at the school, and then the pastor of the school turned around and got mad at me because he thought that I knew that they were coming, and I just decided not to say anything to him. And that is not who I am. I mean, I'm going to do my best to stay on top of things and to mediate like I'm supposed to. But I had no idea they were coming until I got the call. And they were pretty much chewing me out, which the pastor shouldn't have done. But that's a whole other issue. I said, I had no idea she was coming. Nobody said anything to me. I said, if I would have known, I would have told you. And so upon this visit, they had told her that, or Jizelle had told them, don't get up there. Jizelle had told them that I scratched her. I hit her. And that we didn't love her and we never feed her. And so you add that on top of the report card issue. And then my mom had called and said she wanted to come visit for Christmas one weekend. I don't know if it was actually Christmas weekend or not. I think it was. But she said she wanted to come visit for Christmas. And so I had called her caseworker. I told her, I said, well, I need to talk to the caseworker and make sure that it's okay. I said, because I'm not going to tell you yes if it's not allowed. So I called the caseworker. She's like, well, let me check with my supervisor. I said, okay. They got back to me. She said, if your mom wants to come up, she said, it's up to you. It's your house. It's your decision. I said, well, I just wanted to call and verify with you guys because you told me before that we weren't allowed to have any supervised visits without running it by you first. And she said, yes, that's right. But I talked with my supervisor and she said it was fine. The decision's up to you. It's your house. You make the decision. And I should have known right then and there that it was a test. But when you work with an agency and you're trying to give this abused or neglected child the best, that's what I did. I kept in contact with them. I kept them up to date. I informed them of what was going on and all the changes that were happening and progress reports and stuff like that whenever I got them. As soon as I got them, I informed them. Well, that wasn't good enough, and I was coming from the mindset with my mom, you know, I was trying to be selfless because I didn't want to be selfish and think, well, screw her, because I had a rough childhood myself and I didn't want to keep my niece from her grandmother because I know that she was very close to her. But and it didn't cross my mind, well, duh, she's, that's her abuser. My niece is the abused child, and that's her abuser, and you're gonna let her come in and blah blah blah. And uh it didn't cross my mind like that. I was just thinking more along the lines of, well, we've had such a hard time since we've had her. Maybe this might help. Maybe this might, um, help her to see that we're not cutting her off from all of her family. Um, we're not trying to keep her from her family. Not with the intention of that she'll never see them again, but once I made that decision to let my mom come up for the weekend, I instantly regretted it because my mom's a narcissist, and she was physically and emotionally and mentally abusive to us. Uh, I guess I was just looking at it from the perspective of, I had a close relationship with my grandma, and it is, I did have a conversation with my niece's caseworker about how sometimes, when you go through things, it can be very healing to have mended a broken relationship. And so, because we had struggled so much with my niece, I didn't want her to have to go without Christmas. Like, I knew she missed her. Um, and so, I guess I did it from the perspective of trying to make her happy and maybe fill a void that she was missing. Um, I thought I was doing the right thing, and I made a mistake, and obviously I realized it instantly. But then there was an issue that my niece had gotten in trouble. She was acting out, per se, and made a big to-do about something. She made a mountain out of a molehill, and my mom, like, I had yelled at her and sent her to her room. And I was out in the kitchen fumbling around, or maybe my mom was. What the heck? Didn't realize that was there. See what I mean? um, my mom, she was going to go up and console her or talk to her. And I was out there fumbling around in our junk drawer. Well, in my junk drawer, there is a paddle maybe about that thick. And I think I'm a parent that does spank my children. I believe in spare the rod, spoil the child. Now, with that being said, I have never spanked my niece with that paddle. I think there may have been a handful of times where I even used it on my kids, if that many times. I tried not to use the paddle. I mean, we had it, and I honestly can't even remember where we got it from. But months prior to my mom coming up for Christmas, Jizelle and my two kids were in the living room playing around, or upstairs playing around or something, and I don't know how they got on the subject, but we were talking about paddles, or maybe they told them that we had a paddle, or maybe I was joking around with them, because I joke around with my kids and I tell them, I'll beat you, don't make me get the paddle. They know I'm joking. But out of pure humor, one day, and this was prior to my niece coming to stay with us, um, I had wrote, I was trying to be funny. I had wrote, um, my, each of my kids' names was on there, and then I wrote my husband's name on there. And then I think, if I remember correctly, my name's on there too. I think he put my name on there. And then, so Giselle had wanted to see it, and she'd got a kick out of it. She's like, "Well, I want to put my name on there." So I said, "Go ahead, put your name on there." Um, and then after that, it was never taken out again. Well, my mom just so happened to be passing me in the kitchen when I opened this junk drawer. And I went to go grab the paddle out of the drawer to sit it off to the side. And for whatever reason, on the counter, looking for something or whatever I was in there for. And she like freaked out. She had started going off and talking about, "I can't believe you have a paddle," and blah blah blah. I said, first of all, how I choose to raise my kids, and I was talking about my kids, not my niece, is my business. That's between me and God. I said, and my children are by far, they definitely are not abused. If anything, they get away with more than what they should. Um, we do timeouts. We do timeouts in the corner where they stand or sit, or we have taken toys from them, or we don't indulge them by, sometimes we'd punish them by, well, if next time we go out to eat, then you don't get this because you didn't listen. Things like that we would implement first. I mean, it had to be pretty extreme for us to spank them. And like I said, it was very few and far between. Of course, my mom, with her background and coming from what she came from, she was abused as a child. But she grew up and she became narcissistic. And as soon as she saw it, she went off the whatever the saying is, she went off the railing or the handle or whatever. She lost it. She started yelling and blah blah blah. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to listen to this right now. I'm not going to argue with you about it. It's not up for discussion. You feel how you feel about it, and I feel how I feel about it. And she we had went for a walk later that night, and she was still complaining about it. And I told her, I'm not going to spoil my kids like you spoiled my sister and brother. And now look at them, addicted to drugs, because you never held them responsible for any of the actions that they did as a child. And my exact words were, I will be damned if I allow my kids to grow up spoiled, because you think that I'm doing something wrong. And she did not like my response one bit. When we took her home that after that weekend, she had called CYS on us and reported us, saying that we abused my niece. And that is where I drew a line, because CYS could have come in and they could have taken not just my niece, but they could have pulled my kids out of a perfectly happy, healthy, and loving home, and the only adults that they've ever known, the only family they've ever known, and placed them with complete strangers. Could you imagine for a minute how devastating and shocking and surreal and traumatic that would be for a child who has grown up in a loving environment and has never, has been placed with strangers, people they don't know? I was livid. I drew the line, and I had not talked to her since in quite a few years. Um, this last summer, I did try to reach out and try to mend fences and mend a broken relationship, and she's still the same narcissistic person that she ever was. She was on drugs. Uh, the whole week that she was here, I tried to get her to get away from her abusive boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. I don't know if they're together now or not. And she said, okay, I can be a naive person. because I'm not, I mean, I have some worldly wisdom, but I don't have it all. And I'm okay with that. I don't need to have all the worldly wisdom to be smart or to be knowledgeable about things. Um, but she was addicted to drugs, and I didn't realize the most I had ever done was smoke weed and drink. Um, and that was way in my younger years. So that was way before I even got married and had my own kids, let alone took in my niece. And my mom was addicted to drugs and going through withdrawal when I brought her up to my house. I didn't know that until after I'd kicked her out and told her she had to go. She can't be there anymore. And I realized looking back that, and this was just this past summer, this past June, July-ish. And now looking back, I realize she drank 3 to 4 rum bottles in 1 week. A whole bottle by herself. Now, I haven't drank in some time, but even if I did, that is way too much. Way too much. And there could only be one reason for it. Well, after that, like, my mom would be nice, like, when my husband was up and at home, or my kids were around. But then once everybody went to bed, she'd start degrading me and putting me down. She'd start getting belligerent with me. And I just finally told her the next morning after she had been here a week, you gotta go. I can't do this. I tried to make it work. And I realized in that moment, I've done all that I can do. I'm not a bad daughter for um, cutting her out of my life. There's nothing wrong with setting boundaries. I was never taught that as a kid, and so I'm learning that now. And but anyway, my mom went off the handles. Like, she flipped out about it and told CYS, and they took her word for it. They took my narcissistic, drug addicted, uh, manipulative mother's word over mine. I mean, I'm no rocket scientist, but if I was a social worker and I had pulled a child from a home, and I knew that the home I pulled her from, that those parents or that legal guardian was addicted to drugs, or not taking care of that child, neglecting the child's needs, neglecting to meet the child's needs, or taking the child on drug runs, I would also, with common sense, um, realize, or at least, at the very least, not expect them to be honest, or at least expect them to cause drama, to cause issues, especially when something doesn't go their way. But not this caseworker. This caseworker was different. She was special. A special kind of stupid. And in my opinion, I feel like CYS, Somerset County CYS, had railroaded me and taken my niece away from me without proper justification. She was in a loving home, albeit I'm human. I'd be the first to admit that I am short tempered. I get flustered easily. Um, Physically, my stress level, it doesn't take much to stress me out. And that's because I have PTSD, I have anxiety, I have depression. I have that along with a host of other things, physical issues, um, that I had back then when we had my niece. And there's still some issues I have now physically, but no, it hasn't. I've healed a lot since then. I'm not completely healed, but I still have a lot that I've healed from. And I just feel like I got railroaded. I feel like they were grasping at straws and using any um, ridiculous accusations against me for whatever reason. And, oh, and then there was a time, I think when she was in public school, um, somebody had reported us. And I think she was going to public school. Like when we first brought her home, I think she was going to public school and lying and telling them things too. And somebody had called CYS on us and reported us. Well, they came and did their investigation, and the investigation was unfounded. But because of that investigation, that was one strike against us. Unbeknownst to me, nobody told me that until after they pulled her from our home. But they used the guise that they were just gonna, they found a family that they wanted to let her go away for the weekend to, so that um, it would give her a break from us and us a break from her, and blah blah blah. And I was just like I knew it was a bunch of baloney, but what could I possibly say or do? Legally, I had no right or say to tell them, no, I'm not doing that. Because then they would have just said, well, then we'll just pull her from your home. Right? At least that's my understanding. I don't know all the legalities um, when it comes to CYS or dealing with scenarios like this. So if anybody has experienced something similar, or if they think that they've been railroaded too, or if you even have a similar experience with the same Somerset County CYS in Pennsylvania, then please let me know. My niece's caseworker was Julia Bloom. Her supervisor, I believe it was Christine or Tina Lopez. One of the two. I really can't remember, but I'm sure of the Lopez part. Um, and I just feel like they failed my niece. They pulled her out of a very loving home, and if they would have left her with us, she would have adjusted. If they would have not given in to her lies and her manipulation, if they would have had enough common sense to see through that, maybe my niece would have um, adjusted and sort of leveled out and calmed down a little. But God only knows how many foster homes she's gone to. I can tell you right now, when they pulled her from our house, the home that they supposedly were only sending her away for weekends to was the house that they sent her to. And that's how I know that it was a bunch of baloney, that it was just for weekends because of that. Um, my hands are tied. And my husband had found videos. I was doing some research online to try and, see if I could find her somewhere and get a hold of her. I think about her on her birthday every year that comes to pass. Um, I think about her around the holidays. And I try not to worry about her. But it's hard because you never know where she's going to be at. You never know who she's going to end up with. And all I can do is pray that she's placed in good homes whenever they do pull her, whenever they do move her around. But her name is Jizelle. She is biracial. She is a beautiful, funny, smart young lady. And I just miss her. And I've tried to reach out to CYS. I've called them and left voicemails. I've, told them, I don't need a number, I don't need an address, but if you could just let her know that I'm thinking about her, or tell her that I'm praying for her. If I mail this letter to you, maybe you could give it to her. And I don't know where she's at right now. I came across these YouTube videos from April of 2017. This is over 3 years later now. She would be 15. And I don't know, it's just, it's a very sinking feeling. Um, to be made to feel like you're some kind of monster that you're not. And to have a child, whether you've given birth to that child or not, to have a child taken from your home because they don't deem your home safe, or whatever their presumptions were as to why they pulled her, whatever straws they grasped at to get their approval to pull her from our home. You know, this is the same CYS who let her stay in a foster home where one parent pulled a gun on another. And they took her out, but they had nowhere else to put her, so they put her back in that home. I don't understand that logic. And it's because there is no logic. But it is so hard whenever you don't know where they're at and what's going on with them. And when you worry about them. And I pray and pray and pray. And usually from about September on, I think about her very, very much. Very frequently. You know, around her birthday and holidays, she crosses my mind. If I'm looking at old pictures, um, I'll think about her and think about the fun times that we had and the things that we did together. And uh, I just miss her. And I feel like I've been railroaded by CYS. I feel like I was made out to be some type of person that I'm not. I feel like it was for their own personal gain as to why they pulled her from our house. Because they didn't want to travel the 2.5 hour drive one way to come do their monthly visit. I really feel like that's what that's about. And I don't think that's fair to me. And I don't think that's fair to my niece. I think they robbed her of a good family life that she could have had with us. Um, and I think at the very least we should at least be able to have contact with her. I would understand it more. Like when it first happened, I just had to tell myself, you know what, it's out of my hands. Maybe this happened for a reason. Maybe it happened for reasons unknown that, only God knew. And I had to reason with myself like that because if I didn't, I would beat myself up over it constantly. But there hasn't been one day that has passed that I've not thought about her, that I've not missed her, that I've not wished and prayed that she had my number. And so, Jizelle, if you're on YouTube and you come across this, even if it's a couple years from now, you can reach me at 814-657-6001. In one of her videos, when we had her, she'd call me mom, and I was okay with that. But if she called me Aunt Jen, I was okay with that too. Um, I loved her, and I just wanted her to be happy. I thought that I had a lot of love to give. And I thought that if anybody understood her, it was me. Because I had grown up with my mom. And I had been through my own things, and I so very much just wanted to be to her what my grandmother was to me. Despite me not being her grandmother, but I miss that little girl, and I think about her all the time. And life has been nothing but unfair to me since I was a kid. And maybe it's not God's will for me to get her back, but I would at least like to have some sort of communication established so that I can keep in contact with her. But on one of her videos, she had mentioned how she said, "You can reach my mom at 814-439-5429." That was my phone number when she lived with me. Um, so if you are a foster parent, or if you have a biracial child in your care and you're a foster parent, um, and that child is named Jizelle, please get in contact with me. I don't do drugs. I don't go out hooking. Um, I'm a stay-at-home wife and mother. You know, I take care of my kids. You know, we have 3 dogs and 2 cats. Uh, I'm the most forgiving, loving, and accepting person that you'll ever meet. I am also the most protective, fierce advocate for those that I love and those that I see getting picked on or bullied or pushed around for no good reason. I will be the first to come to somebody's side and protect them or stand up for them, whether I know them or not. And the whole situation just with CYS just makes me cringe. Like there was something more as to why they, you hear these horror stories about these kids that get taken from perfectly loving homes for no reason, and then God forbid they're placed somewhere, and I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just worrying too much. Maybe it's just watching too much of the ID channel. I do that. But I'm a God fearing, loving, forgiving, protective wife and mother, neighbor, friend. Um, I think the most I'd be guilty of is probably being a homebody. My friends invite me to come over to their house and hang out or go here or go there, and I'd just rather stay at home. And maybe that's because of my health. Maybe that's, also in part because of everything going on with COVID. But if anybody has any legal advice they could give me that pertains to the state of Pennsylvania as to how I could get my niece back or how I could fight it, and I'm only saying this now because I never really thought about that. Like, it never really crossed my mind. Um, it takes me a while sometimes. I am thick headed. Sometimes it takes me a while to catch on. I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, but I'm also not dead either, so I'm a little sharp. um, but if anybody has any advice, I would greatly appreciate it. Um, I hope you guys have a blessed day. Thank you for taking the time to listen if you've listened and watched this far. Um, like I said, if you know of a biracial girl by the name of Jizelle Lowe, that is in foster care, or you know of a family that's doing foster care and they have a child with them, please let me know. I am her aunt. Um, I wouldn't just get on here and make a video about some random child. I mean, who makes up a name like that? You know? But I need some help. What can I do? Where can I go? Does this sound like a good case that would hold up in court that a judge would listen to? Anyway, I appreciate any and all advice. Um, but I'm also going to be the first to tell you that if anybody gets on here and bashes me for whatever reason, um, I've had my fair share of people like that, dictators, authoritative people. You know, my dad's been remarried 5 times. I've had to deal with evil stepmothers. I grew up with a Cinderella complex because I was treated like Cinderella. I will not tolerate anybody putting me down, calling me names, making me feel bad. I just won't tolerate it. So if you have no advice to give me on my situation and legally advice that could help me get my niece back or get me to get communication with her or know of her whereabouts, then don't bother commenting. If you don't like the video, simply skip it. Keep going. Don't sit there and make a scene and make a fool of yourself because I'm just going to block you. I'm just going to delete your comments. Thank you.